Welcome back to the Manifesty Mamas Podcast. I am your host, Jea B, a woo woo mama role model, here to talk about manifestation and motherhood. On this episode, we're going to be talking about my postpartum awakening. I will say disclaimer in the beginning of the video, this may be a trigger warning to some individuals. Again, if you have listened to this podcast before, if you've watched my videos on YouTube, or if you've checked out Manifesty Mamas Space, then you will know that the script is posted on the blog as a blog post under philosophy. So go to Manifesty Mamas Space if you're new here. Manifesty Mamas Space, MANIFESTY MAMAS.SPACE. And I have a blog up there under philosophy where I post the scripts to the podcast on the blog. And if you're listening and watching, the transcription of the podcast of the script is not verbatim, it's not direct. You may hear some different things on, like, everything I'm saying right now isn't scripted, it's not on the script. But if you're a reader and you like to read about this topic, then there is something for you on the blog to read. So I start off this blog post, I start off the script with a question. And it states, will anyone truly know how hard you worked, how much pain you endured, how much suffering you felt in order to get to this point right here, right now? This is not pessimism, but a philosophical questioning of the understanding of acceptance, balance, and duality. Pain can occur while happiness exists. Pain can exist as happiness occurs. One person can feel pain while another is experiencing happiness. Both people exist at the same time. As above, so below. Today we are discussing the philosophy of the postpartum awakening. The postpartum awakening exists, and we're going to dive into a bit of what it looks like to have faith after having children, and on the motherhood journey in the style of rant, rampage, rabbit hole. This is how I write. How I write isn't much different than how I talk, so let's get into this. What is a postpartum awakening? Can that even be real? It's real for me. After having my first child in 2020 and my second in 2022, two completely different postpartum experiences, of which I will say were probably complete opposites of each other, I've seen my journey align with the philosophy of the postpartum awakening, where it's the spiritual awakening one has specifically after having children. Connecting the emotional, mental, and spiritual experiences I've had after having a couple of physical birthing experiences, I have this immense sense of gratitude and love for it all and everything I've learned, along with the towers, the breakdown of reality that comes with any form of spiritual awakening. To be clear, this postpartum awakening philosophy I have cultivated and experienced differentiates from postpartum mental health disorders, which you can learn more about on Postpartum Support International's website, postpartum.net, which I have linked in the blog. And yeah, Postpartum Support International, they have a ton of amazing resources. And it's because the postpartum awakening is not a diagnosis, but more of a philosophy of understanding the spiritual experiences and effects after deciding to go through the process of pregnancy and childbirth. Through the process of becoming more self aware, confident, aligned, and intentional with my choices on my motherhood journey, I've gathered my experience and evaluated how each tower or each blessing in the journey so far has contributed to my well being. Disclaimer, I'm into the woo woo and I'm spiritual, so yes, love and light to it all. But on some real shit, I have a support system physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So that has been a privilege to be able to be here to philosophize about a postpartum journey through the lens of the postpartum awakening. And I will also include, for anyone listening to the podcast and watching on YouTube, I will include this short information, I guess, fun fact about myself. I did have postpartum anxiety after both my kids. And I didn't get diagnosed with it, I did go to therapy both times. I went to therapy both times. And it was because of me choosing to be a working mom. I went back to work a few months after having my first kid, and then a few months after having my second. It was very challenging, completely different time frames. The first one was during the pandemic, and I was an essential employee. So that was very challenging. But I leaned in on my resources. I leaned in on my faith and what I had in that time. I believe I go into a little bit of that in one of the other episodes. So ultimately, for anyone reading this or listening to this podcast episode who needs to get help and is in the postpartum phase, I suggest going to the Postpartum Support International site, which I have linked in the blog, Postpartum Support International, calling the hotline at 1-800-944-4773, speaking to a counselor, and signing up for the virtual or in-person support groups. It's free and they do help. And they also have support groups that are paid for, I believe. In my opinion, I have used it to connect to resources. It's a resource. I'd also affirm that it may require some patience. So take some deep breaths and know that you're not alone and good things are on the way for you. Okay. And I want to also acknowledge that, yes, being that I did have postpartum anxiety, that doesn't mean that I didn't have a postpartum awakening. And a part of the awakening process is that self-awareness and understanding what I was experiencing and labeling it as such, or connecting it to that label, whether it was diagnosed or not. So I do want to include that information. I wanted to include that as well. So let's dive down this rabbit hole. Google's dictionary shows the origin of postpartum, first recorded in 1840 and 50 from New Latin. Postpartum meaning after childbirth, accusative of partus meaning a bringing forth, and parere, which means to bear. Google's dictionary has the definition for awakening as an adjective meaning rousing, quickening. For example, awakening interest in ballet. As a noun, the act of awakening from sleep, a revival of interest or attention, a recognition, realization, or coming into awareness of something, a renewal of interest in religion, especially in a community, a revival. Okay, with this being seen, I believe that mothers deserve to envision and experience beauty in life after birth, which is the norm for some, but societally, is it the norm for all? Can we be in the depths of pain and challenge at the face of discomfort with a knowing that joy and happiness always exists? And I will also include that well-being is our birthright. I'm going to type that. And well-being is our birthright. I think we fucking should. I think that faith, defined as confidence or trust in a person or thing, specifically that of a higher power, inner godly power, magical essence within ourselves as divine feminine in the womb space as mothers, to keep it real, is always present at the worst and the best. And with a postpartum awakening, you see that. You see the faith, you see the strength and softness that you have and already had within. You see that the existence of what is revived after childbirth is of beauty and harmony, to which the story you tell yourself aligned with that can be a focus of your attention, time, and energy. Can we reclaim our power and focus on the joy within ourselves? And I also want to add into this, yes, and this is most definitely a yes, and I have goosebumps, because let's have the option of the postpartum awakening. I am giving you all the option of claiming your story and claiming postpartum awakening in your story, in your birth story, in your motherhood story, right? And it's bringing in a title, a label, and experience a story of positivity in something that traditionally and societally has been negated so negative. When you say the term postpartum, by definition, if I hear postpartum anywhere, people tend to relate it to the depression that comes after the word postpartum, but postpartum means the time. Postpartum is defined by time, it's not defined by a diagnosis or a disorder. It's not defined by disorder. So I would suggest that postpartum awakening is something to use when you describe your experience or even think about your experience becoming a mother. For any of us who've had any type of spiritual awakening, if you can relate to this, it's as if shit just comes up out of the shadows for you to heal or for you to deal with and address. And just somehow, and you just somehow have faith that it'll all work out, that your life has purpose, that you and your existence has meaning, regardless of what challenges in front of you or what mountain you have been set out to climb, regardless of what bill hasn't been paid or what your baby daddy or your husband expects from you. Mamas, whether you've just had a baby or you had children decades ago, the life that you had before welcoming a child into your home, into your space, is one of the past. And the past is one we can treasure. It's one that we can take all of what brought us joy, then reimagine, reclaim it for the now, included in the tools for us to use now to get what we want in the future. Hashtag Sankofa. I want to say Shankofa, but Sankofa. It's a whole Sankofa moment. Okay. A question within this is what I want in the future, anything that I had a vision of in the past? Let's table that and definitely comment if this connect if you relate to this or if this resonates with you. As far as a postpartum awakening, I'm pleased to say that I am in a different stage than when my body was physically healing from having had pushed a baby out of my vagina. I'm in that sweet spot of the joy and fulfillment felt after the storm. The rainbow after the rain has, is, and will always be worth the sacrifices and experiences felt. I made a post earlier today about how sacrifice really is a choice and how nowadays I would believe that sacrifice is more synonymous with a choice than it is anything else. And maybe the definition of sacrifice is just choice. So read that post. I think I'm gonna post that on my blog. So read that. Manifesty Mamas Space. So let's connect the postpartum awakening philosophy to the rhetoric of postpartum life culture via social media. I've heard that the time frame for the postpartum phase isn't limited in years, Gregorian that is. So, an analysis of this rhetoric of the postpartum journey in relation to a collective understanding of the postpartum phase, socially as a millennial mom, viewing the digital climate and what is most liked and shared from conversations on complete different sides of the scale, of one side being empowered in the acceptance of the motherhood experience, to the far other side, where it's in complete regret of having not fulfilled goals and dreams in the pre baby stage of life, laced with nuances of the snatched bodies or normalcy of wine mom culture, and having no village or a total village, watching gruesome wars on our cellular devices in places we may not reside in, or balancing our minds with the work we decide to spend our time with while others care for our children. So this is hefty. There is a lot in this paragraph right here. Okay. It's a yes, and I will continue to say that because, yes, there is war going on. And I am still showing up for other moms that look like me who are going through whatever they're going through. Like, there's a lot happening. There's a lot happening, and we still show up. We still show up for ourselves and we still show up for our children. Okay. For me, in this melee of seeing what's real in my life and others around me, the postpartum awakening has served, okay, served as a reminder to stay optimistic in these times, appreciative of my privileges, mindful of my discernment, and ultimately keeping a healthy sense of delulu for the work, for the goals and desires I have set intentions for moving forward. Oh, this is potent. I'm going through my Saturn's return this year, 2023, and it's the last year of my 20s, and I'm living it up, intentionally having all the fun that my boundaries that I honor will allow me to play within. Okay. The standards to which I set for myself where I am as a mother, having my own identity I've chosen for me and who I want to be as a manifesty mama, aligned with what I know is far greater to my destiny, for who I am connected with my ancestral lineage and kin. Do you understand what I'm saying, friend? It's a whole poem, okay? That's a whole poem. And postpartum awakening, wearing what I want, doing what I want to do purposefully, awaken so that now in the present, my actions are aligned, divine, right, just for me, right, for who I know myself to be. When you're in a spiritual awakening, like I was saying before, anyone who's been through one can understand this. When you awaken to something, you allow yourself to feel and see things you may have not have seen before, and you explore and you feel and you create. And life can be just how you desire it to be. Or maybe I'm in La La Land with Zona Fluff, still using the tools out here for me to use, crafting art for another day. In this postpartum awakening, I say poetically, stay awake. Travel in your dreams, rest in the night. It's worth it, you will see. We deserve to be spiritual and thrive. This philosophy of the postpartum awakening journey can lead to women and people with children to open their energy and align with the importance of self care. It can lead them to set value and priority for their self care practices, which ultimately we may have less women with children and people with children running to substance abuse misuse because they don't have the tools, resources for them to honor their experiences and emotions enough to take action with practices of self care and self love. I do research. I understand and understand that this is also an outcome of going to therapy, going to these support groups, going to AA, going to NA, going all of these modalities, all of these groups and connections ultimately have a similar outcome when it comes to focusing on yourself, honoring yourself, having healthy self-care practices, and maintaining practices of self-love, and honoring your divinity, your spirit, your body, your being, your joy, your happiness, your peace, and your serenity first. To which, statistically, if we want to pull data in it, we will have less families who are ailed with substance misuse and substance abuse, and possibly less women who are committing suicide, because that is statistically mothers who, after, I believe, and the data is on the PSI website, the Postpartum Support International website, but it says that within the first year of childbirth, the number one cause of death for mothers is suicide. So this work is not just to, the work that I'm doing right now is not just me being a woo-woo mama role model and saying, oh, spiritually, you can have a postpartum awakening. I'm going to repeat this because it's very important. This philosophy of the postpartum awakening journey can lead to women and people with children to open their energy and align with the importance of self-care in their own way. It can lead them to set value and priority for the self care practices, which ultimately we may have less women with children and parents running to substance abuse and misuse because they don't have the tools, resources for them to honor their experiences in themselves and their emotions enough to take action with practices of self care and self love. Being awakened to my habits, what I consume, whether it is through my ears, my mouth, or my mind, is an important key I have gained through my postpartum awakening. Especially after having my second child, as a spiritual mama invested in accepting and embracing my manifestations, I was given clear decisions that I had to make in regards to the boundaries I chose to keep with myself and others around me. I had to set boundaries to myself in this new phase of mothering multiple children, balancing that reality I chose with the shadow work practices, inner child healing, healing generational traumas with what I choose to do in my day to day, each day, every day, how I choose to think, and the stories I tell myself, if they affirm my desired reality or only follow patterns of comfort for pains of the past. It's wild how clear it was. And sure, it happens to many first time moms as well, from maiden to mother, in the lens of get your shit together. What the fuck do you want out of life? Run up that discipline, get your bag, and come correct in your life. Okay? Maybe the universe is saying that. Like, I imagine the universe says there's something different. Well, let's reread that. I imagine that's what the universe says. And there's something different about it with kids and being spiritual. The postpartum awakening, in my eyes, is a very beautiful, positive opportunity. Okay, it's a door. I'll write more about this as time goes on. But for now, thank you and Ashe for reading, listening to this intro, Philosophy of My Postpartum Awakening. Mm. And again, I said that this is an option that I believe moms at any age, at any stage, in any phase that have children should accept this and even see this as something that they can use in the framework of how they view their stories, how they view their experiences. You know, if you think about your experiences through the lens of a postpartum awakening, for me mentally, that expands my mind in how positive I can really see a situation. And I would love this for other parents and other mothers as well. Thank you for tuning in to the Manifesty Mamas podcast and into the discussion, philosophy, culture, and time. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, feel the delight of your life and vibe. Find me on manifestymamas.space, specifically in the philosophy section, talking about manifestation, law of attraction, spirituality, the woo-woo on my blog, and other mystical topics relating it to the light and dark nuances of motherhood. With much love and harmony, Ashe, from your woo-woo mama role model. It's been beautiful to connect with you. Connect with me if this resonates with you. And do good for you, okay? Ashe.